Ladies and gentlemen, today we are joined by an absolute legend, a recognized world record holder who had the world's longest surf. He surfed for over 40 hours, riding over 770 waves. But not only that, this guy also has a bulletproof mindset and decided not too long ago to start running ultra marathons barefoot. And he's actually got a marathon that's going to be coming up where he's going to be, it's going to be a multiple marathon because he's decided to run 220 kilometers barefoot. Absolutely wild. And today he joins the Daniel Leese Podcast. So I cannot wait to share his story and also shed some light on how to build a mindset like this, because this is something that is just, we live in a society which I feel is quite soft, whereas we can definitely learn from people like this, where they push through these barriers and they go the extra mile just to prove to themselves what is humanly possible. So before we get started, I would like to thank our sponsors, Ansem Skin. Natural skincare for range. Go check them out. As you can see, my wrinkles are starting to disappear, which is good. But they're a brand for good. They've got some really cool ethics. So I'll drop that in the show notes as well, so you can go check them out. And for those that are new to the show, welcome along. I'm gonna be filling your hour with the next hour with as much value as possible. So I'm really happy to have you here. Thank you for joining. And for those that come back every single week, you know the drill. You got some cool stories coming up. So thank you very much for putting your trust in me. But if you haven't, as we see all the time on our channels, a lot of people listen to this podcast, but they don't subscribe. And we aren't able to get legends like today onto this show without a decent following. So yeah, if you could just drop us a follow, subscribe, that would be more than you can imagine. It'd help us so much and help this show get out into more eyes and ears around the world. So let's welcome this week's guest, world record holder Blakey Johnston. How are you, mate?
Hey, brother. How you doing?
All the way over in Australia.
Yep.
How's things down under?
The weather's pretty crap today, but it's still awesome.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Because at the moment it's what's it, winter for you? You're coming out of winter now. Very similar.
Autumn, yeah, autumn. Now it's summer. Now it's autumn. Yeah.
Yeah.
In autumn, this is my favorite time of the year. It's just the water's still warm and it's the air's still really starting to get a little bit colder.
Yeah.
But the water's still warm. There's lots of waves around.
Nice. And what sort of temperatures does it get down to, coming into? Because we're entering to the summer now, so that means obviously where you're from, this is going to be the winter, right?
Coming into winter, yeah, it's about 22 degrees Celsius today. I think it'll get down to about 13 degrees Celsius. I think it'll be the coldest it'll get overnight.
Okay, nice. Not too bad in comparison. So, just before we get started, obviously there's some people that won't know who you are, so just give us a bit of an overview about who you are, what you do.
Cool. My name's Blakey Johnston. I am a father of two boys, married to my absolute legend of a wife who I call the Goat MILF.
The goat milk.
Goat MILF. She's a queen. She helps me get everything done. I run a surf school here in Cronulla in Sydney, Australia. And I was a pro surfer as a junior and then spent a few years on the world tour before starting my own surf school. And then, I love doing and challenging myself with endurance challenges and seeing what I can do, and just love testing it and making the most of every day.
Yeah, and we'll come on to that shortly because definitely mindset is something I'm really intrigued by. That especially yours, running that sort of distance and surfing that amount of time, is unthinkable, hence the reason why you've got world records for that. But also to run barefoot, that's definitely something that we're going to dig into later on. But at the beginning, I obviously mentioned that you've done a world record. You've surfed over 770 waves in one go, totaling around 40 hours. You've broken a world record by over 10 hours, I believe. But before we get into all that juicy stuff, I want to know the little Blakey. How did little Blakey become into big Blakey, and what shaped you into the person you are today?
Yeah, well, I've always been around the ocean. I'm one of 5 boys. I'm in the middle, and I wanted to be like my older brothers who were already surfing. They're 4 and 8 years older than me, and they got to spend more time with my legend dad, who was working his ass off on the other side of Sydney, and he was a bricklayer and then a builder. And I just wanted to spend extra time with him and my brothers. So I just followed them over the hill. We live close to the beach, followed them over the hill and just fell in love with surfing. And It was amazing childhood, just surfing as much as I could. I look back now, like even all the kids I coached, no one surfed as much as me. I
Mm.
absolutely loved it and loved getting better and yeah, had an amazing wild childhood with my four brothers.
Yeah. When did you first ride your first wave?
Look, I have a vivid memory of my dad taking me out when I was about 4 or 5 years old, just floaties on, one board between the two of us. He'd put flippers on and kick me onto waves out the back.
Yeah.
And that's one of my first memories. So yeah, I would have been 3 or 4 years old, and then it wasn't until a few years after that, around 8 or 9 years old, that I really got stuck into it and was running over the hill every day chasing my brothers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's quite funny, isn't it, that in nowadays, we chase the money, we chase the success, we chase all these types of things, which give us, probably no fulfillment, just like nature would, and being able to have that on your doorstep from a young age and just be able to go into the sea and just feel that energy.
Yeah, man, it's just like now I know that it's like something's not right. If I'm not in the ocean each and every single day, I know that I'm so used to it, and it's not even about going out there going surfing, just being out there in nature. There's that blue mind theory. It's been studied, and it's a mild meditative state that humans fall under when they're in, under, or surrounded by water. So, at my house I live in at the moment, we're only renting, but we look over the ocean. And it's just the most amazing thing to come home to every day, and knowing that you're doing something good for yourself by surrounding yourself with that environment is awesome. And to have that forever is so good. I get the same thing through now though, being in the bush, when there's not much else to do, the sounds are minimized and you're out there on your own. I think it's everywhere if you look for it, you know what I mean? If you have that bit of intention, knowing you're out there and you're out immersed in nature and you actually go and be present in it, that you can make it happen nearly anywhere.
Yeah, I mean the thing is that's our natural habitat, isn't it? We're not meant to be in in this world of signals. Like we're not designed for that. We're designed to be in nature. Like that's how our bodies are designed.
That's it. Like we're indoors now. What, for the last 500 years or something? We've spent so much more time indoors, and it's not how we've evolved. So it's just you know, it feels natural to be out there, man. To be connected.
Yeah. And what was like, when you've obviously discovered surfing, so I assume you've gone off to start your own surf school and all that good stuff, and you obviously fell in love with it straight away. So, what was growing up like? Because you had we get told focus at school, do all this, do all that, but when you do something you love so much and you're so young and you don't know how to focus that attention, you must have just been always thinking about surfing all the time.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Like I stopped playing rugby league when I was about 9 years old, and I had really supportive parents. My brothers are already sponsored surfers, already right into it as well, and that's all. I lived in. Would go to sleep in my wetsuit sometimes, so I could wake up and be the first one out there, and just it was never hard work. I spent so much time in the water between the age of 8 and 15 that I got pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And I just absolutely loved it. Never seemed like hard work. I just wanted to be in the ocean and improving my craft, and just loved what came with it as well. The friends I made and being able to surf with my brothers and my dad through those years was just my fondest memories.
Yeah. And you've got five brothers, right? Or there's
Got
five,
four brothers.
four
I'm,
brothers.
I'm the one in the middle. Yeah.
There's five of you, yeah, and you're the middle child.
Yeah.
And how was the kind of like relationship with your brothers growing up?
Yeah, it was pretty standard. It was pretty standard.
Lots of
Being the
fighting.
one in the Yeah, lots of fighting and rumbling and picking on, and just nothing too dramatic. But the older brothers not wanting me to hang out with them because they were already teenagers, and they had this little little tag along with them everywhere. But I just I admired them so much. I still do. But um, and then the little brothers were about as tall as me by the time they were 5 years old. So I was always in the middle of all the arguments and fights and stuff. So there was never a quiet moment in that house, where we grew up, for sure. It was pretty chaotic.
And what about your parents? Like, what role did they play from an early age?
Oh man, my dad was really humble, really hardworking, sort of kept to himself. He was really authentic with what he said he was going to do. If he was going to be coming home from work and say he'd take us surfing, no matter how hard he had at work, he'd show up and he'd be there for us no matter what. So he had amazing qualities. And mum was just so caring. She didn't work. She was full time with all of us, and she did an amazing job. We were never rich. at all. We never had lots of money. And looking back now, being a parent, small business owner myself, I know exactly what they were going through. It would have been so tough, on
Yeah.
top of moving, on top of, raising the 5 boys, dad working 6 days a week. They invested in themselves and backed themselves and went and tried to renovate 4 of our own homes within that time as well. So there's a period of like 10 years where dad worked 7 days a week just to try and get ahead and do that little bit extra to get there. And unfortunately, it didn't really work out for them too well. But they were, yeah, they were amazing, loving. They did their absolute best, and we didn't have any crazy holidays or do anything crazy or have amazing cars, but we had the ocean, we had all the surf gear. We never felt like we missed out. We never did. And
Yeah.
that's something I've taken on as a parent. The things that I remember aren't the things they bought us. It was the experiences we got, going down the coast surfing and being able to surf every day and getting a new surfboard once a year. And those things was enough. We were so glad. What we wanted more than anything was to have time with mum and dad, because dad was always working.
Yeah.
So to get to go surfing with him now and then was just the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And it's not anything that I'm buying, and I try and do that my own. I want to give my kids everything, but at the same time, I know what matters to me, and I never felt like we missed out on anything. Not that we had the most amazing house and beautiful holidays and shiny cars. We just had the ocean and surfing, and it was the best. It was just amazing.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's like, I think basic human needs is love, time, and attention. That's it. Do you know what I mean? I think, we overcomplicate it by all these prized possessions and stuff like that. And I remember very vividly, because obviously living in Dubai for 11 years, you're surrounded by flashy things in an ever-changing world. And I always thought, I wanted to, it was like one of my goals was buy a Rolex. So one day I was able to buy it. I bought it, and honestly, I had fulfillment for about 5 minutes. And then when that fulfillment settled in, and I was like, okay, this is like actually not a long time kind of like fulfillment vibe, then your attention straight away flips to like what, and the times of where, as you said, like my family, I came from working class family, very similar to yours, and some of my fondest memories are the holidays that we got in the newspaper, which were like £10, where we'd go down to like Newquay and we'd go bodyboarding. Like I can't surf. Maybe if I come to Sydney, you can teach me. But
Yeah, for sure.
but yeah, we used to go bodyboarding and just down the beach, and we'd have our little kind of like cocoa bops in the small boxes. But it was some of the best memories. It wasn't about how much money we were spending. It was about like how much entertainment we had, and it was those are the best memories.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like, ultimately, it's if you feel safe, you feel seen, and you feel loved. What more could you want?
Absolutely.
And that's all they want as a kid, and that's all I want to focus on giving my kids.
Yeah, 100%. So you turned into a junior pro. So at what point did you realize that you were actually quite handy in surfing?
I got good pretty quick, as I said before, and it was just I competed quite a lot. We've got the local board riders at every beach every beach in Australia has their own board riders club. So I was entering them from the age of 10 years old, and by 12 years old, I started winning them and winning some state titles and making it on the state team, getting sponsored. So it all happened really, really fast. But I think by the time I was 14 and getting paid from some of my sponsors, I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
I didn't think too much about where I was going. I knew I wanted to be on the world tour,
Yeah.
but I was just enjoying my surfing and putting the time in the water. Where these days with surfing, everything's brought into it. There's all stretching and gym programs and everything. But as a grom, you have to be out in the water. You have to understand the ocean and learn that, be adaptable, and learn how to read the conditions and trust your instincts. And that takes a lot of time in the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I did. I put as much effort and time into the ocean as I could.
And was it like when you're, because I mean, obviously surfing is and that kind of pro world and stuff like that, it's not something that I'm kind of savvy to. So when you've got obviously like football trials and stuff, you get scouts come along. Would the scouts literally just come down to the beach and check out who was there, who was surfing? Was there like a popular beach to go to where you knew that you was going to get noticed by somebody?
There were some places like where magazine editors lived or where the photographers lived, so you just had access to being in front of the right people.
Yeah.
So that was pretty limited as well. So it was really through the local surf stores where they would supply the big brands and they would give you a shop sponsor, and then through a shop sponsor, the brand would hear about you a little bit more as you proved through the rankings and maybe got the odd photo in the magazine.
Yeah.
And really, you just had to earn it. Really, if you weren't over at Narrabeen, which is a popular beach in Sydney, or over at Bondi, like Cronulla, where I grew up, was sort of a little bit. It's 30 minutes south. It's the most southern suburb in Sydney. There wasn't a lot of coverage back then, not like the northern beaches had. So you really had to earn it. You get the results and show that you had the skill that way.
Yeah. And how old were you when you got your first sponsor?
I would have been about 11 years old when I started getting some free wetsuits and stuff off the local shop, and then through one of the major brands, and started to get some free surfboards. And that was about 14 when I started to get paid.
Wow. That's a young age, isn't it?
Yeah, it's super young. Like I remember the guy ringing me going, "Hey, I just wondered if you wanted to go on a retainer." And I was like, "A retainer? What's that? What do you mean?" He goes, "Oh, well, we'll pay you monthly to use our gear." And I'm like, "I love your gear. I'll use it for free anyway." Like I was just totally blown away that they would even want to pay me to use the equipment that I was already stoked to be using.
Yeah.
And it's funny looking back on that now, but yeah, that was the start of it. That was an accessory company willing to pay me some money, and then the board companies and the clothing and wetsuit companies all came on board and supported me.
Yeah, nice. So, in that moment, you're obviously, as you're 14, you're gaining confidence, you're getting attracted sponsors, people want to pay you to wear their stuff. How did you remain level-headed?
My big family, my big brothers, they wouldn't let my head get too big for my shoulders. Now they kept me grounded for sure. There's a bit of tall poppy syndrome over here in Australia. Don't know if you get that in Dubai or the
What's
UK, but
what's that mean? Sorry, tall poppy syndrome.
people tall poppy, they just cut the tallest person down instead of helping them and push them towards the green. They sort of say it in a demeaning way, and you would rather pay you out and bring out the bad points in you.
Yeah, but
So it's
do you know what the thing is that I wasn't even going to go there on this one, but now you mentioned the point. Going back to what I was saying in the introduction, so many people are so soft in this day and age. How do you feel about, like, obviously now, like, character building? Do you still believe that that is the right way to build character in somebody, is to focus on, not necessarily what they're good at, but what they're bad at, so that they remain humble, not too confident, like,
I think resilience is needed. I think we need to go down and tell people what they're not good at it all the time. There's a right way to do it, but I think it's exposing yourself to challenges is where we can build that without having to be, you know, condescending or bringing out talking consistently about any negative points that they've got. I think it's about knowing that we grow through our challenges and exposing it and giving people the opportunity to do that and find it out for themselves as well, what they're capable of. I
yeah,
think that's really important. Like it's a hard thing with my own kids, they've got it so good and I love them so much, but I want them to understand that they're capable to become independent and do things on their own, and they'll have to get through their own challenges to get there and to build that self-belief. So
yeah,
it's I think it's not about making it harder and having that, knockabout attitude. I think it's more about doing it in the right way and knowing that challenges are healthy, that struggles are healthy, that these things that we aren't good at something, putting that effort and that time into
mm,
it is where we get that growth and we can understand that we can be better.
yeah, yeah. Because it was something that we spoke about right before, when we caught up over a video call the other day, just to kind of, so I can understand your story a bit better. We spoke about how, it's so hard now to employ good people because everybody thinks they're kind of like, they're too good for things, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think they see everything online and everything's
Mm.
just so instantly given to them as well.
Yeah,
So I think they deserve it because they see it everywhere. Every 10 seconds they look down at their phone, there's someone talking about how good they've got it or shiny and their shiny new toys and the money they make and everything like that. So I think it's really unrealistic to how we actually get there. And I think
yeah,
that's what's really important to just to, make sure that we learn that we got to earn it.
yeah. So you obviously you called yourself a junior pro, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so what? So I assume, like in the surfing world, then with as a junior pro, then like that's the kind of first step you go into, and then you're kind of what's the age bracket for that? Like, is there an age bracket so that you're competing against people your own age?
Under the age of 20 would be a pro junior. They run pro junior events around the world, and that was under the age of 20.
Yeah,
So anyone could enter that if you're good enough to get and had the means to get to those events.
yeah.
So yeah, under the age of 20, and there was two all around Australia. It was massive back then. We had 8 or 10 junior events in our own Australian junior tour. Then I would compete in some overseas in France and Portugal and stuff as well.
Nice. And did you ever win any pro tournaments?
I didn't win any pro ones. I got second in a pro junior. I made the top 100 in a couple of the years I did the world qualifying series.
Yeah,
But never had that big breakthrough win after sort of, I run everything in Australia except for the Aussie titles. I won the state titles 3 times. I run a few of the professional events outside of that, but that was sort of my peak competitively.
yeah.
As I led into the pro juniors, where I got a couple of seconds and thirds, top five a few times in the end of year rankings, I was still getting a lot of media coverage. I was spending a lot of my time away on boat trips and photo trips and building the profile.
Mm. And I suppose that's kind of like your first bit of adversity, right? Because when it comes to being a junior pro, getting all these sponsorship deals, winning your state titles, and then you enter into that world of competing against elite level athletes and not kind of cutting the mustard and getting to where you came from. Did you find that affected you a little bit from a confidence aspect?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That was a big learning curve, and I didn't take from it what I could have, I was definitely fixed in what I had. I got everything given to me. I earned everything pretty young, you know what I mean? I got sponsored really early. I was praised as the next prodigy coming out of Sydney and had a lot of expectations. So to get and I won a lot. I was doing really well in the competition. So to get step into the pro ranks and not make it through as many heats as I was hoping I would and not actually win the Pro Junior series or win the Aussie titles, that was definitely a hit to the ego for sure at that point in time. I never thought I was better than anyone, but I believed in myself, and to get there and to not win, I was really just there trying to protecting what I had. I wanted to make sure I still had these sponsors and got to
Yeah,
travel and got to do all these. So that's why I focused on keeping my profile by doing the surf trips and then also competing, but not leaning into that competition like I should have, because that was the direction ultimately I'd had the goal for years to get onto the world tour.
yeah,
But I wanted to keep that sponsorship. I wanted to make sure I had the money to do those things and keep that profile. Because my other mates that were surfing with, they had me to strive for. They had that, that next level up. With like, I want to get that sponsorship. I want to get those rankings. They had that drive, and I was sort of at the top of it, getting paid and getting on these surf trips. But the way that they were just grinding through the events and doing really well in the events and earning their ranking points for next year and their seeding points. And by the time I was like, oh, I've got to really start to focus on the competitions, they were starting 3 or 4 rounds ahead of me.
yeah,
So I had a lot more harder work to do, and I was still doing a few competitions and stuff. So in hindsight, looking back, I should have really focused on just doing the events and getting to as many events as I could and building my ranking and focusing on that. But I had that, idea that I had to keep my sponsors happy and my family happy and keep that profile, keep my head in the magazine so that I could continue to get paid and keep that lifestyle and keep that momentum in that direction.
What was the internal dialogue though? Because the internal dialogue is you're getting all these sponsorships, you're face of the magazines, you're the next big thing, but then you're not cutting it in the in like the bigger tournaments and stuff. So how were you talking to yourself in that moment? Because I can imagine
Well,
there was lots of voices going round.
well, that was all good for a couple of years, until I was sort of 18, 19, because I was in the magazines and I kept that profile going up. But then, all right, I'm getting to the point where it's just going to be pro tour only, no more pro juniors, and I have to focus on that. And like I said, my ranking wasn't where it could have been if I had done more events and been focused on that. So, um, as I led into those competition and not doing as good, I was definitely. So then the contracts were sort of getting halved each year because I wasn't up where I could have been on the rankings, and I'm nearly 20 now, and I should be almost qualifying for the main tour. And I still had sort of a year or 2 or 3 ahead of me, and not getting those results. It was pretty tough, and it was more what I come to realize is that I was sort of surfing and not surfing for my own enjoyment, not getting the results for my own enjoyment. I was just stoked to get a result and be able to ring mum and dad or my brothers and go, yeah, epic. Look, I got through a heat. That was what I was surfing for. I was surfing to make other people happy and
Mm,
not doing it for my own personal achievement and my own personal goals. And
yeah.
that was something that I look back now and I'm like, well, that's where you weren't making that progress. It wasn't self-fulfilling. You were trying to fill someone else's cup up, and in hindsight, not being true to yourself.
So, at what point did you decide that you were gonna kind of quit then and focus on different avenues?
Yeah, well, when the one of the contracts, my main sponsor sort of got halved, and I said, "No, I'll look for another sponsor," and did that without year on tour without having a major sponsor. It was kind of like I've got to make a decision here. I'm going to go home and work and raise the money and pay for it off my own back and get to the event and do it that way, which I would have done,
Mm,
or sort of look for another direction.
mm,
And, like I said, I've always stoked to give my parents a call. I was always, even when I was younger, I was, stoked for my whole family. Sort of such a big family to have me doing well in the events and make them all frothing that I'd get the result, and I was doing really well. Um, I still like that, but when I was back after that year on tour, I did a couple of lessons at the surf school and really enjoyed teaching people surfing.
mm.
Had an opportunity to buy into the surf school, and I took that in my hands, and I'm still here, sort of 18, 19 years later.
Nice, nice. So there wasn't any real kind of like feeling of failure or anything like that then. There wasn't anything like that associated to that. You were quite happy with the transition and you just off you went, yeah?
Nah, not really. Like for those last sort of 2 or 3 years without the major sponsor, between the sort of ages of 19 and 22, I still wanted to be on the world tour, but I definitely didn't have that self belief and that drive to be able to be out there training and surfing like I was every single day. Obviously, there was distractions then too, you know, being on the other side of the world and coming home. And my friends were all, doing their trades and they were partying on the weekend and hanging out. I've never been much of a party or a big drinker, but just missed a bit of that social connection, I guess, traveling so much from the age of sort of 13 years old to 18 years old. And then those guys finishing school and just having a good time with them when I was home. I would travel and come straight back home, and I yeah, I just feel like I felt like I was missing out a bit then, and then wasn't being as focused as I could have been, and I think that was really just taking my mind off not doing well,
Yeah,
and I think it was a way of me going, oh, I'm enjoying myself back home. I'm going on tour. I'm coming back. I was a bit lost for sure, and it was
yeah,
definitely from not being where I wanted to be at
yeah,
that point, and having that sort of fixed mindset of, "Oh, I've got to keep doing the photo trips and I didn't want to disappear from the limelight. I wanted
mm,
to make sure my face was there in the media because I'd known that for so long. But I needed to be focused on the events and actually be dedicated to that and be training and be coming home and surfing more and training more. And I wasn't doing what was needed.
yeah. And when you were as a junior pro, what sort of training were you doing? Like, how many hours were you spending in the water? Like, what type of things were you learning? What were you doing?
I was lucky enough to be a part of the New South Wales Institute of Sport, so we had exposure to a lot of high performance training as well. Always been around some good coaches, but not really a mentor to give you that clear direction of what your next steps are.
Mm,
Mine was just world tour, and that was it. And there weren't those little steps along the way. I should be aiming to get in the top 100 next year, and then top 50 next year, and then have a crack at qualifying the year after. I sort of was just sort of drifted through because I was doing the photos and off on trips half the time, just focusing on my surfing and not competing. And you need to be 100% in. You need to be focused on surfing as good as you can and competing as good as you can. Because it's it's takes a lot of focus, and you need to be switched on year round. If you're doing 15, 18 events all year, you can't have go home for 2 weeks and forget about it. You got to be switched on and training and competing and surfing that different way, surfing to the criteria and not free surfing.
yeah. Um, so the first few years of getting into, teaching people how to surf, you was obviously thinking about being back on the world tour, but when were you able to just completely move on from it and be like, yeah, this is where I'm meant to be?
Yeah, I guess it was the last year of the tour. I kind of knew it was my last. I'd met my girlfriend then, my now wife, and just went through Europe and had a great time in Europe. Then met up with her and packed the boards up and traveled through Europe for 3 months. And I sort of knew that that was going to be the last time I'd come back to Europe to do any of the events because I'd had a taste of the surf school. And then when I got back, I was looking forward to running my own show at the surf school
Mm.
and getting into the water and growing that and taking that challenge on and making that business to what it is today.
Yeah. I mean, you've been running the school now for 19 years, you said, yeah?
Yeah, close to that. Yeah.
So tell us about some of the lessons you've learned from being an entrepreneur, because obviously being a sponsored athlete to then going into the world of entrepreneurial, like the entrepreneurial world, sorry, that's a huge culture shock. Like,
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Even how small, even starting with how small it was. Like we started with, 10 boards at the back of this raggedy shed at the back of the surf club and, 30 wetsuits and stuff and, 5 lessons a week to now doing, nearly 20,000, participants a year coming through the surf school. We do big school groups and camps and stuff like that. And, 100 lessons a week through summer. And it's a full business, 50 part-time staff, which makes it difficult.
yeah,
And yeah, there's been a lot to learn along the way. I've got a brother, my brother, who's 4 years older than me. He's an accountant, so he's helped guide me through a lot of the challenges and a lot of the setup, and I guess stopped me from making a lot of mistakes. But I'm still learning, man. I'm still completely learning. The small business or business landscape's continually evolving, as everyone knows, and to do it on my own, the main thing, and I still learn and I'm still learning to be a better listener and take more things on board and not just do it yourself because I love it so much. Even now, it's hard to step away. Like right now, coming into winter and giving my staff enough work so that I can maintain them into the next summer is something that I've struggled with because I enjoy doing the lessons and I like being out down there. And for me, it's making it a place where people actually want to work. Of course, the staff are part time. I want to make it a place where it's more than just getting that paycheck at the end of the day, where they can come home with a smile on their face because they just took 6 kids surfing that'd never been surfing. They stood up for their first time and they're sharing the stoke of something that they love
mm,
with other people. And you're doing more than that. You're changing people's lives. A lot of the times that we're down there, they're leaning into something new. They're taking an adult that's never spent much time in the ocean down. It's big, man. It's big for someone to say sign up for something new as an adult and leaning to something that's they're not sure about into the ocean, which is always ever changing and uncertain, and give a crack at a new skill. It's admirable, to see these people, lean into that.
nice. And one thing I was going to ask you earlier on that I forgot to ask actually, obviously spending a lot of time in the ocean. I mean, here in the ocean, you haven't got to worry about a thing, but obviously in Oz, it's like, I think there's too many things that can kill you, let alone what's in the water. So have you ever had any close calls, like where, sharks have been swimming around, or any times where you've been like, that was really like quite a close call?
I'm cool with them. Like I never get freaked out by the sharks or anything. Like if I see a big one coming at me, I'm going in. But I'm always been pretty aware of my surroundings and I accept that they're out there no matter what, whether we see them or not. But there has been a few scary moments for sure. There's like one in particular, surfing this reef break near home. It kind of breaks out off this, reef ledge about 300 meters out to sea. It's right on the northern peninsula at Cronulla.
Mm.
And we're just sitting there with a buddy. And this is only like literally about 10 years ago. Sitting there with a buddy and a little swell rolls underneath us. Quite a big swell this day. One rolls underneath us and we go over the top of it and we see this thing the size of like a station wagon. And you can see the white belly, the big grey top half of the body. It was just cruising, 20 meters away through the next swell, and we could just see it climbing through. We looked at each other with our jaws dropped and just like didn't say a word. Both knew exactly what we saw and didn't paddle anywhere. Went over the next swell and saw the same thing swimming back out off to sea, and just took a breath and went, "Holy shit!"
Yeah.
That thing was enormous. Like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
nothing you could have done if that thing wanted to eat you for breakfast. It was
Oh,
it was just cruising away, but it was almost like it was like a humbling experience. I wasn't super scared, but it was just like this is almost beautiful moment, this huge thing that's just this apex predator just cruising through this next swell 20 meters away as it steered off, and it was it's clear as day to both of us that what it was and how big it was. So
Wow.
we didn't actually go in. We stayed out and kept surfing, but that was definitely a close encounter to something so big and raw. It was awesome.
Nice. Well, not so nice, but yeah, cool story. Um, so you've got a world record for taking the longest surf, and you do these crazy endurance races in circumstances that are unimaginable to the average human. So, did you always have a bulletproof mindset?
No, definitely not. I think we all have a bulletproof mindset. We've just got to be able to put the hard work in to find it.
Mm,
Be able to, I think we can create the bulletproof mindset.
yeah,
That self-belief that I think we all have, and that's why I'm happy to talk I wanna share my story with people because I believe anyone with hard work, anyone can find the self-belief they need to do amazing things,
yeah,
and I definitely had to earn mine, for sure.
yeah.
Definitely there's been periods in my life where I've had a lot of insecurities and self-doubt, and to come from a place like that to a place where I'm standing, in on the beach about to do the longest surf by 10 hours, that something no one's ever done, or run barefoot through the bush all night long, and know that I'm going to get to the end and have that self-belief is yeah, I think it's empowering to know that anyone can do it, and
Mm,
I want to make sure people see the best in themselves and see what they're capable of.
yeah. So, obviously there was a pinnacle moment in your life which spurred you on to go and to do um, the surf and stuff. So tell us a bit more about obviously what happened and obviously your dad's passing and how that affected you.
Yeah, so I think after starting the surf school and going through my 20s and growing the business, my wife working really hard, we had our first little baby boy, Bobby, when I
Yeah.
was around 29. And then about 18 months after that, um, already I was feeling, again, like I said, pretty insecure and feeling a lot of the social pressures that I know a lot of people feel, with finances and career and business, and feeling, um, the pressure of wanting to have a bigger and a beautiful house for my wife, and the insecurities of my own small business being seasonal and making more money and wanting to have more for the ones I love, my newly born son and my beautiful wife, and I was feeling pretty insecure for a bit there, and when Bobby was about 18 months old, um, during that, my dad took his own life, and he was my absolute hero. He was more than just my dad. He was like my best mate. Like, me and all my brothers would pop up and see mum and dad whenever we could and just spend some time with him. And he wasn't one to sit there and give you advice and everything, but he was just so humble and authentic, and we knew how hard he worked, and just an awesome man to be around, and
Mm,
grandkids loved him. And to have him at a point in my life where I probably needed him more than ever, you know, just to be in his presence, and being a young dad, knowing what he'd been through and imagining what he'd been through with 5 kids and running his business and doing that for so long and still working his ass off. It was just comforting to have him there, and to find out that he couldn't handle it himself was just hard, like, can't put that into words. I've been through the depth of every emotion to deal with it, and it took me years to realize, that I didn't want to end up being in the same position as him. Didn't want to be another one in 9 Australians that take their own lives daily, or one of the 800,000 globally that take their own lives every day. It's just another number. I didn't want to be that, and I had bigger reasons to. I'd have a family that I absolutely love, and I had to learn to, find some self belief and self care and self love. Ultimately, is what it's about. To be able
mm,
to put the time into yourself and become better for yourself
yeah.
and for the ones around you.
What were the emotions that you went through? Because the reason why I'm interested to know this is obviously there's a lot of men out there that, I mean, we're alien to emotions, right? I mean, we come from an era of where guys don't cry and all that sort of stuff. So showing our emotions is sometimes frowned upon when we were kids, right? So we've had it ingrained in our brains that we shouldn't be a certain way. So what were the emotions that you actually felt?
Everything. I feel like I felt guilty for what I didn't know, or was I just blindsided because it was my dad. He was my hero. Did I not see the obvious signs of him being so depressed? I know he had sleep apnea. I know he had felt a bit insecure about not owning his own home, being 60 years old, and these things that I understand in him. There's no one way to handle grief. Everyone's going to go on their own emotional journey through it. And I know now that it's just what you feel, that deep sadness is just an appreciation and love and respect that you had for that person in their life, that
Mm,
hole they feel. And more than anything, like the pain, it doesn't go away. It just gets passed on to the ones that you love. And that's something I think anyone struggling needs to hear. Anyone that doesn't feel worthy is that they are. I saw how many hundreds of people come to his funeral, and Dad didn't have a close group of friends. Everyone loved him because he was such a legend and genuine human, but he worked so hard and he was there for his family and his grandkids. He didn't have a healthy diet like he could have easily had control over. He didn't have his own extra hobby that he could have found an interest and value and self-worth in. He
mm,
didn't have his own group of friends outside the family that gave him that sense of belonging outside the family that he felt that he worked so hard for, that he knew in his generation that was his job to do. I did felt guilty that how come he didn't know them? How come I didn't tell him about them? All this stuff I know now that, could have contributed to his well-being. And I've been angry. I've been angry that why he was not around, why he couldn't help me through, couldn't help my brothers, my mum, be there for my wife and my kids when they needed him. And we saw him as this, pillar of strength in our family.
yeah.
And, and maybe that's why, I felt guilty too, that I held him so in such high regard that I didn't think he could ever do something like that.
How long would you say you went on for in terms of like the emotions that I suppose at the end of the day, it's probably, I mean, even 10 years now, I suppose you feel like the pain still, but at what time did you feel like, it was starting to get a bit better?
I'd say about 4 years. I reckon it took me about 4 years
Wow.
to actually feel better. Yeah, to actually see some progress and feel that progress and develop, some self-worth, self-belief, and continue on from that.
What did you learn on that journey then? So you obviously we spoke about the emotions, but what as a man, like what did you learn? What were the lessons from that integral part?
I learned a lot about what is important, how important it is for you to put yourself first and
Mm,
be the person that you want to be first and foremost, so that you can be there and show up for the ones that you love. That you deserve it, you are worthy, and that when you are the best version of you, you are a better husband, better father, better business owner. And it comes down to doing things that make you feel good and putting the effort in. It's hard work. It's not easy, and it's just making sure that you give that time to yourself to be able to evolve as a human.
yeah. Yeah, because it's tough, isn't it? Because there is some really painful moments in that. I mean, I launched my business in October last year, and I've just you put yourself under this like overwhelming pressure to try and be successful, and then you find that your life is just purely consumed by like that moment, and then sometimes I'll sit there and I'll be like, is this really the most important thing in my life right now? Like, and it's because of like the social demands, where you feel you should be in your life, as a man, like what we have to provide, like, am I even at that stage? Like, all these different things
Yeah.
that go around, and then you lose sight, like you say, of what's important. And sometimes that realization is like somebody close to me that suffers an illness, or something bad happens, or you see something where tragically a young person loses their life, and you just think, man, I need to snap out of this, because I need to like really
Well,
live a life that's authentic to me, and focus on what are the most important things.
that's it. Hey, it's about being present in the moment. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Like I think that's what it will come back down to for me. I've learned is that any of my insecurities have come from judging things that I've done in the past. Not making it as a pro surfer, and maybe not being there enough for my dad, like I now know I could have been. And through business phase, after dad passed away, I started a business, did a surf shop, and it went pretty good, went okay, and then we end up closing the doors after like 2.5 years. And it's really just making sure that you're living true to your values. That's all you can really hope to do. That's where you're going to find your happiness. You
Yeah.
know, and that's
A-
way harder than it sounds. Trying to
Ah,
be authentic, trying to be, show your vulnerability, and really doing it in your own way is an ongoing challenge.
do you know what? I really can sympathize, and understand where you're coming from there because, I had a moment of that as well, like, where I was living a life that wasn't really true to me and I had to make a lot of changes. Um, and I think one of the first things I had to develop was being self-aware of me and my actions and what that implemented, and it is hard because that word, that voice, sorry, in your head is like saying, come on, like there's an easier route out of this because you like our mind is there to protect us, right? I mean, I was chatting to somebody about this the other day and they were saying, our DNA hasn't changed. Like our DNA is still 200,000 years old, but the world around us is changing, into this. And ultimately, our brain is just here to protect us. And it
It's
has
there to
so many
keep us
different,
alive, right? It's there to keep us alive. It's stopping us from any discomfort or uncertainty. It's doing its job when it's
yeah. But the internal dialogue sometimes is just, like you say, it just really, and I think this is why sharing stories like this is so important because, you know, giving men the opportunity to hear, you know, that they're kind of not the only ones going through this, and there is a route at the end of the, oh sorry, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and sharing that light, I think is incredibly, important. But did I mean, you're an advocate for mental health, so would you say that you've suffered from mental health, or do you
definitely, yeah, yeah, definitely, yep, 100%, yep, definitely had the insecurities. I'd definitely say I was depressed and anxious, and through those periods of my life, definitely.
Yeah. And did you ever consider, like ever taking your life as well? Like, did it ever consume you that much?
Nah, I'd say close to that. Like I never would have planned to go and take my own life, but I did feel pretty worthless. I
Hmm.
remember saying I'm not good, feeling not good enough. I hate myself. Told my mum I hated myself, and all these things that you'd never say that to your best friend. All
Yeah.
these things that you would, when you hear them out loud and you say them and you look back at them, you're like, wow, man, like that's the same person. I can't believe that.
Yeah. No, 100%. So, when did all these crazy challenges start to come about? Because I mean, I can't imagine you'd just wake up in the morning and go, "Do you know what? I'm going to do the longest surf ever." So, did you kind of break yourself into it, or like what was the transition into doing all these crazy things?
Well, like, as you mentioned before, as I was talking before about that time in my life where where I was feeling pretty worthless in myself and not seeing there was any direction out or progress forward for me. From the outside, I was looking at amazing. I had a beautiful wife. I had the surf school pumping along. I was Blake, the happy surfer, but it was internal where I was struggling. Right, I
Mm,
love my family. I love my boys, and I was really struggling with my own self worth. It was me and my problem, and it was only going to be me who was going to change that. So I get to a point where, you know, we close the surf shop, and then about a year later, the other surf school license at the beach come up. That's something that I was always looking, being an entrepreneur, having my own business. That's why I did the surf shop, thinking I could bring in my customers, and that wasn't. I'm pretty impatient. That didn't, happen as quickly and didn't expand as quick as I wanted. So I got pretty impatient with that and sitting in the shop and waiting for things to happen. I like to keep moving. And so we closed the shop. And then about a year after that, the other license came up and I bought the other license. So that little bit of progress in that part of my life, in that business sector of my life, really, really made an impact on my health as well. Because I wasn't always unfit. I was a little bit overweight, but I was still surfing most days and doing the odd run here and there, spending more time on myself through winter because the surf school was always quieter.
mm,
And then this one particular time, I got that excitement, stoked to take over that business. And then I came back. We came into summer the next time, and what I'd noticed over those few years is what winter. When I was in winter, surf school gets quiet. We do a few surf retreats overseas. I'd have a little bit of more time for myself. I'd be able to surf, hang with the family, do a lesson, and take the people surfing, and then do some running and get a little bit fit. So I noticed a pattern. I'd be fitter in winter when I'd have some more time for myself, and summer would come around and I'd be hectic. I'd be busy at the surf shop and the surf school, and I would forget about my diet. I'd forget about my training. I'd just be doing lessons and managing the school and the shop. And we're looking in, it was only noticed this a few years ago when I was laying in bed with my kids and we're looking at Instagram, and they're like, let's play fat dad, skinny dad. And we'd look through Instagram, go back through it, and there'd be, sure enough, there'd be photos of me looking overweight, 5 or 10 kilos on, and then summer looking, winter looking ripped and fit and doing my running challenges. And then summer I'd put on weight because I just didn't have any routine. It was just hectic around with the
Mm.
surf school. And anyway, I come out of buying the other surf school and saw that excitement, was just frothing that the business was starting to grow. And then came out of a winter into summer and changed my diet with my wife. So it just happened to happen at the right time. The surf school's expanding and I'm feeling positive about that. And then I'm doing a running challenge through winter. And normally I default back into hectic busy at summer, but I started to change my diet and I was excited with how I felt after 2 weeks of doing that. And then I kept going on with that. And then I ended up, taking sugar out to help, do the diet with Lauren. And then I took um, wheat products and then dairy, and then ended up going, oh, I love the challenge of seeing how disciplined I could be with my food and seeing the progress in my body, less information, running even more, and just seeing the progress from that business happen to now my diet's changing and now I'm running every single day because I feel better and just because I can. It was transpiring to all the different parts of my life. So within a period of 6 months, I was the healthiest and the fittest that I'd ever been, and the business was getting stronger, and things were happening in all areas of my life. I felt this energy with everything. There wasn't any attachment to anything negative, and it was all about progress. So as soon as I started to make that little bit of progress, that's where I started to develop that self-worth. I can do this. I'm developing that self-belief through business, and that transpired into my own health and wealth, and um, making the progress through there. And that was where I just kept going with it with my fitness and the challenges and running.
Mm. So, how does it come around then? So you decided to surf for 40 hours. I got that right? So it's 40
Yeah,
hours,
yeah.
770 waves.
707 waves. So
Ah,
it averages a wave every 3 minutes and 25 seconds.
wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, which is a lot.
incredible. So,
Yeah, man, I
so
went surfing. Like I go surfing sometimes now, and I'm like, man, that's a lot of waves. I'm like, that's tiring thinking. So if you surf that intensely for 1 hour, it's a big session. Riding
yeah,
18 waves an hour is an active full on session
yeah.
for most people. For experienced surfers, it was
Mm,
full on. But going back in question, where how I got to that point to do the world record. So from changing my diet, seeing that bit of progress, I just developed that mindset of what's possible if I focus on me feeling better, you know, and then not taking any away from my family, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning so I could fit my run in, so I could get ready at the surf school and not take time away from my family, and just developed more structure, more routine than I'd ever have. Being a pro surfer, then running my own business that's dictated by the ocean, never had set routine. So by finding that time early in the morning, getting up, doing that, I was accomplishing more than anyone by 6 o'clock in the morning.
mm,
Been for a run, set up the surf school, had a coffee with the old surf lords down the road, and that was all before the sun had even come up. So it was empowering, man, and I just love that. I love that those changes in my diet and seeing that little bit of progress just went into my fitness as well. So before
yeah,
long, I was running every single day. Like I said to you before, I'm definitely not the person to listen to about programs and structure of how to get fit. This is just of feeling better. Doing that through my diet, doing that through having a little bit more of a routine, and sticking to it, and just feeling empowered by it, and just having that mindset. If I can run every single day and do this, I'm going to run further. So I just started lengthening my runs and signing up for a few challenges and running 14Ks, and then doing a half marathon, and then doing a full marathon. I end up doing all of them barefoot, and yeah, that's what just led me to the idea of, all right, if I can do that barefoot, I'm sure I can run 100 Ks. I'm sure I can run 100 miles, and just ongoing curiosity of what was possible for me.
That I mean, you know, there's running 100 miles, but then there's running barefoot. Um, I mean, it, I don't even know how's that even possible.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm trying to picture your feet right now. Like, are they like bricks?
Nah, they're not. I wish they were, dude. I wish they were. I'm in the water, so they're soaking. You know what your hands get like spending a couple hours in the water?
Yeah,
That's me every day, and then I run on my feet. So it's not I'm not being very kind to myself. It's just a bit of a battle most days,
yeah.
when I don't put the shoes on and run the concrete and run the roads and stuff. It is I'm not breaking any speed records, but I'm jogging, I'm running, and I'm getting it done, and it happened like by accident, and I didn't want to stop when I was training for that my first marathon. I got a cut on my heel, and I'm like, this isn't going to stop me. So I ran barefoot on the treadmills because I was overseas at that time, and then got home, went to put the shoes on again because I surfed so much. It was just this big sea ulcer on my foot, and I couldn't put shoes on. So I went, you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to keep running, and I ran 100 days straight into the marathon, and went and ran the marathon with no shoes, no food, no water, no supplements. Just did it as raw as I possibly could because I just wanted to see again what was possible for me, and I
Mm.
believed that I could do it.
Um, Through that moment of running the marathon and obviously 100 days up to it, how were you feeling? Like, how was like, were there any moments? Because what I'm trying to understand is, obviously I'm big into fitness, I'm big into personal growth, and I love pushing my body to places it hasn't been. And I when it gets tough, my brain is just telling me you don't need to do this, just stop. Like,
Mhm.
there's no lions chasing you, nobody's trying to kill you, you're just trying to prove a point to yourself. Like, why are you doing this? And sometimes, I mean, one thing I haven't been able to master is a 3-degree ice bath, I'll be honest. The pain is just so much sometimes that I'm like, I can't stick it. But how are you able to because there must be so much pain, first of all.
Yeah, there's a bit, but it's just the feeling you get on the other side of it, by looking back at how many times I get up, then I don't want to get up. Like, it's not awesome getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd way rather spoon my wife for another hour or two, but I know that I'm going to be better when I get back from that run. And if I want to be
Yeah.
accountable to my word too, if I say I'm going
Mm.
to do something, I want to do it. Or if I say it to myself, most importantly, I want to do it. Because if I do that, then I know if what I say to my family and my friends that I'm going to do, that I will show up and I will do it. I think that's
Yeah.
really important, and I think that's something that I'm really proud of. That I always do what I say I'm going to do, and especially to myself first. And I wasn't doing that when I was younger. I was trying to be a pro surfer. Yeah, I knew I should have went training, or should have spent more time in the water when I came home from events, and been more focused on it. And I didn't do it. And I look now, like, we've all got an opportunity to, if we all did exactly what we said to ourselves that we're going to do, we'd all be pretty awesome humans.
Mm.
Said we want to get up and eat how I want to eat, and train as much as I want to train, and be as healthy as you can be. If we say it to ourselves and actually stuck to it, I think we'd surprise ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, there's one thing that pops into my mind because I hear about this a lot. Like, I love consuming podcasts and stuff. Um, and it's one thing that you hear quite a lot consistently among successful people is, you know, don't fall into the trap of lying to yourself. Like, don't fall into the trap of promising yourself you're going to do something and don't follow through with it, because what happens is you lose confidence in yourself.
Totally, it's the
Uh,
opposite of being accountable, right? Like,
yeah, I've always felt that, when you don't do what you say you're going to do, it almost affects like how your brain operates, because it's almost like you're lying to yourself.
yeah,
You said you was going to do this and you didn't do it, you lied to me. And yourself is the only person you're with, so it's like, you can't escape that, you can't escape lying to yourself.
no, absolutely not. Like, and that's where, like, but it's the action, it's the doing that actually you build that self belief. It's the actions that you take that actually resonate with everyone around you as well. And that's I think
Mm,
what I've learned the most out of this is that, We all talk a lot and we all have a million thoughts, but it's actually from your lips to the actions is where it matters. Actually being able to put it into place, and I think that's the most powerful thing you can do. You can actually do the action. We can talk about it and ponder on it, and most people do that too much, and they don't just go out and get after it. And it does. It's process over perfection.
Mm.
We want the end result, and we want to see that happen, but we think about it too much and think about the effort that's got to go involved, rather than just start. And we're further behind by not doing it straight away. So it's important that we remember that action, even the smallest little of actions that leads you in towards the person you want to be, is
Yeah.
so important to be accountable to.
So, all this pain that you put yourself through with some of these, ultra marathons and the surfs and stuff, do you think that has something linked to do with dealing with the trauma of, obviously losing your dad?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's through the experience of them that I've felt myself being empowered. Like you said before, most people get to, like you with the ice bath, you get to this point where you're listening to your thoughts so much, and you're not your thoughts, you're your actions.
Mm,
You'll believe your mind's trying to protect you. It's doing its job. Of going, this sucks. Let's get out of here. This isn't safe, and you believe it, right? Where
mm,
you can perfectly say you're gonna have to sit in that ice bath for 35 minutes before you get hypothermia, man. You're completely safe for 2 or 3 minutes,
yeah.
but you let that dictate what you've been told and what you're telling yourself, and you're not everything you think. You
Mm,
know, and that's one really important thing I've learned, to not believe everything that you think, If
yeah.
we believed everything we think, we'd all be mad, So it's being able to decipher what thoughts are gonna help you lean towards the person that you wanna be, and be aware that negative thoughts are gonna come
Yeah.
regardless of the situation, and that they're just thoughts. They're not you. They're not making you a bad person. It's your actions and that are tied to them that make you who you are.
Yeah, I think it's very important that the point you mentioned there is like it's the end. It's at the end. The during is sometimes painful, but at the end feeling. Like I recently competed in a high rocks competition. I beat my original time. Never imagined that I could do it. I broke my ankle in 2018. They told me I'd never be able to run again, and I kind of never let that define what I was going to go on and do later on. And whilst I'm not breaking records and stuff like that, it's so painful. And as I told you about the ice bath situation, the whole way around this high rocks competition, my body's like, you don't need to do this. Like, if you quit now, nobody around here is going to
Mhm.
notice your face, or they're not going to hold you accountable. You can do it if you want. Anyways, I pushed through. I've done the whole thing twice now, and the feeling at the end, it's just like unmatchable. It's like unmatchable energy, like that I've never been able to do anything else and get that. I had it also with public speaking. First time I did public speaking, I was absolutely bricking myself. Finished it, felt on top of the world. Moving to a different country was one of the most daunting things. The first part, it was painful, like, leaving your family, your friends, everything you know. But on the end of it, I now live an amazing life. Like, and one thing I always say to people is like, it might be painful where you have to go, but like everything in life that is good, I feel, is on the outside of your comfort barrier.
Well, you were accountable to everything you said when you achieved those moments, right?
Yeah.
You're the one that was, you know, people don't think about it. We go so caught up about what people think about us and the result, and being accountable to other people. They're dealing with their own shit.
Mm,
When we're accountable to ourselves, that's who we sit with,
mm,
and that's who ultimately we need to prove to ourselves, that
yeah.
we can do these things if we set out to achieve to do them, and that's the only thing that really matters.
Yeah. 100%. So let's go back to the day of the surf. So I was watching some of the news channel that reported you and came down. You started surfing at 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah, 1 a.m., 1 a.m. on a Thursday morning.
What made you want to do that? Like, did you want to try and finish at a certain time then, or did you know you was going to even do
Yeah,
that long?
we wanted to finish it sooner at the end of a working week. It finished on a Friday afternoon, so we could get the support of the community down there, and that was about. It was about bringing other people in and feeling so they could feel connected and felt a sense of belonging to raising this money and being a part of something as authentic as a real surfer down at their local beach, doing something that no one's ever done before. And
Yeah.
um, it was in memory of my dad. It was important. People felt the power of that and knew that it was for youth mental health, and I've always been a big contributor to the community. I take my role as a leader and as a mentor to the kids seriously, um, and it showed that that I do have an impact on the local community and abroad by the response we got from it. Man, it was wild.
Yeah, I mean this. I mean, I was watching on YouTube throughout the week, like some of the news articles, and everyone covered it. Like even newspapers all over the world were covering the story.
Yeah.
So you enter the water. I mean, it must have been quite chilly as well if you're doing it at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Nah, not chilly. Not like I was. It would have been better if it was colder, given how hot it was the next day. So I'm standing there at 1 a.m. on the beach, and I'm looking out at the waves, and they're way bigger than expected. Even forecasted. Forecasting these days is amazing, but
Mm.
it was still 2, 3 feet bigger than expected, or than 4 foot bigger than I would have loved it. And I'm looking there, and there's whitewash from right corner of the beach to the other side of the corner. I'm like, wow, man, this is really going to make me earn it. I was full of self belief at that point to get there. I was standing there knowing I was going to see the end. Even though I was doing it, breaking the record by 10 hours, and it was no one's ever surfed for that long, and it's going to ride 500 waves was the goal, and we had the nutrition plan and all this in place. I'm like, I knew I was going to get to the end. I just had so much self belief, and I'd manifested this moment and this next 40 hours like nothing I'd ever done in my life. The
Mm.
3 months leading into it, I ran past the alley, which is the break I did it at, and that morning I was there, and I stood there and I just stood there for a moment, thought, give a crack at manifesting this. I've always visualized things, being a surfer and business owner, of how I want things to work out, but not actually fully commit to it. So I stood there the first day, about 100 days out from the surf, and I'm like, I'm going to have a crack at manifesting. So envision this huge crowd on the beach, like never been before at the alley, and my mates cheering me up, and I sort of giggled at myself and kept running. Next day I did it, and after a few weeks, I started to already really immerse myself in, stop, take a few breaths, and started to feel the moment, feel how grateful I would feel in that moment of everyone being there for me after doing the hardest thing. And I really started to live the emotions every morning, sort of going past it, and got really good at picturing the end of the surf, and also this how hard it would be, appreciating how hard it would be. And so when I got to the beginning of that surf, I just knew that I was gonna see the end somehow or another, no matter whatever it threw at me. I believed I could get through it. So when I saw those big waves, I was like, oh, here we go. It's not gonna be easy. I'm gonna really earn it. Grab my board, run into the waves, and after the second or third stroke, I hit this massive jellyfish, probably like 40 centimeter big jellyfish, and then paddle a few more strokes, and there's another jellyfish, and there's hundreds or thousands of jellyfish throughout the whole break for the whole surf. So nature was throwing it all at me, and like I said, the waves were bigger than I expected. So I was going under. Duck dives are when you go under a wave, when you constantly go under a wave to help yourself get out the back. And there wasn't
Mm.
any channel, a clear, a deeper section of the beach I could have paddled out in, which would have been really nice. I had to go under waves. So by the time the sunrise came up on the first morning, I'd ridden like 150 waves. I'd done 400 duck dives under waves, and my eyes were already just completely cooked. And I was but I had this excitement and this adrenaline and energy that I was riding way more waves than we'd calculated to be able to fill fill back up with the calories. And the doctor was telling everyone that was paddling out, slow him down. He's riding too many waves. He's going to burn out. And I just felt so empowered, and I just kept riding all these waves and surfing properly, and not just taking off and flicking off a wave. I was riding them to their potential, riding the wave as long as it allowed me to ride it.
Mm.
So I could do it in an authentic surfer way, not just be ticking the boxes for the world record, but
Yeah, not just like
I'm
going
gonna
down
do
and going.
I'm gonna do this
"Hmm."
properly.
Yeah, yeah. You're actually like tackling it head on, so like a
Yeah.
proper. Um, yeah, I mean, even just like even just thinking about it, going under the water, your neck muscles must have been in a world of pain as well.
Yeah, like everything hurt, what I mean? Sit on the couch for 40 hours, man. It's gonna, yeah, your shoulders and your back are gonna hurt, do nothing for 40 hours and you're gonna hurt. But when you're moving vigorously like that in all different directions,
Mm.
and in the salt water and the tight wetsuit on, like, doing my runs, I knew what to expect a lot. I know when I've done my 30, 40 hour runs before non-stop, the littlest mark on your t-shirt turns out to be like it's a hammer sticking into your chest, like these things you just notice absolutely everything becomes annoying and agitating at certain points as well. But you get past those points and you get through it and you keep going. And it was just a lot more than I expected early on in the surf, which made it pretty brutal for the for the whole 40 hours.
Yeah. Um, so when did you finish the actual surf then? What time was it?
We finished the surf at 5:07 p.m. on the Friday afternoon.
Wow.
Um, yeah, we broke the world record that morning at 7 a.m., 11 minutes past 7. And that was an epic moment. We'd surfed, I'd been in the water for obviously 30 hours. That night, went to a
Yeah.
pretty dark place overnight. The first day was amazing, man. The waves were pumping. The waves were like perfect 4 to 6 foot offshore. Everyone was having the best time. We had these big cardboard cutouts of my head on the beach that the kids were playing with.
Mm.
Tradies and my groms from the surf school, and hundreds of people all day throughout the beach, cheering and coming out and surfing with me. And it was still pretty big for a lot of the kids to come out, but a lot of my mates were surfing with me, and a part of the procedure was to have water safety. So any of my mates that had their first aid were signed on for water safety. They'd come out and surf with me, but it was so pumping. The community was out there cheering me on. And it was just amazing, most amazing vibe, not only in the water but on the beach too. And then we'd planned to have a border riders battle. All the local border riders club came down in that afternoon, and I was, 18 hours deep into the surf, and all these people I knew from all the different surf clubs would come out and ride a wave with me and high five me, and it was an amazing atmosphere that afternoon. We had a cocktail party at the close. There's this restaurant called Sea Level right on the beach, so we had this 300-person cocktail party, this border riders event, thousands of people down the beach all there, just this crazy, amazing energy and vibe between, like it was like this full festival vibe. It was amazing, and as that night crept in, it got dark. The waves started to drop off. There was 100 people in the water. It got quite dangerous. It got dark quickly. We had the spotlights, the floodlights, but it was just too dangerous. Too many people. The judges couldn't even score me because they couldn't tell who I was in the water. And I was
Mm.
starting to get tired and it got quite dangerous. So we had to get the lifeguards down off duty, call them from home, and clear the lineup so it was safe again for me to continue to surf and not risk getting ran over by the 50 people in the water. Because it's fun surfing under lights, but it's quite hard to look into the light if you're surfing in certain directions and become quite unsafe. So my wife saw that I was struggling a bit and starting to get super fatigued and all these people around me and a bit agitated. So she's like, we got to get the lifeguard. We got to clear them somehow. So the lifeguards came down and put their lights and sirens on and called the crowd in and culled it back so that it was manageable and safe and went back to how we'd planned to run it. And my
Yeah.
mates got me through that night. It was a tough night. They got me through that night, and I eventually saw the world record, and that picked me up again. It got so small that my wife and my kids could paddle out. The waves are only 2-3 feet, and they could find the channel and paddle out and greet me and celebrate with me when I broke the world record. So that was super special.
Yeah, because I mean, just a second ago, you mentioned obviously about like when it got really hard. What when you say it got really hard, what was some of the stuff that stuck in your mind as like an actual challenge? Like what was challenging for you?
Man, like staying awake at that point. My whole body was sore. I was, 20 hours deep into a surf, 20 hours deep in the middle of the night, these bright lights stinging my eyes after a day of surfing, you know, 450 waves. I was done. My body, I don't know, everything was numb and just staying awake. They got worried about me at points if I shut my eyes for too long and nod off a little bit. And they had to put a life vest on me for an hour or two just so they, worried that I was just going to black out at any point. So I got through that and I was still riding waves through these moments. It was like breathing through my nose, focusing on anything positive and high fiving my mates, but just super drained at those points. Really surprised how I could keep getting through that. But then, I get a little spurt of energy later on. I get through those points of tiredness and utter completely disillusional and come back, and the next hour I'd feel really good and I'd be
Yeah.
surfing proper again and riding more waves. And then, it was it's a constant wave. Any of those challenges I've learned, I was expecting it. You feel like a king one minute, you've got this adrenaline, yeah, I'm gonna kill this run, and then the next minute I'm in tears.
Yeah.
Your wits end of being fully depleted and your emotions are running hot, and you go through these waves of emotion. I was expecting that in the water. It's just physically and And, fatigue wise, I actually hadn't slept for 40 hours before I got to the starting line of the world record. I was
Mm.
so pumped to be doing this world record that I had all this adrenaline. I'm glad all the interviews and the pressure of doing those interviews had worn off and I could see the start line. I just got so excited that the night before I didn't sleep. So I was, 80 hours awake before I fell asleep in hospital and had done the
Wow.
hardest thing I'd ever done. So I was really tired even when I rocked up at 1 o'clock, but I had this adrenaline overriding it. And that second night was really tough for that. There was moments where I was dozing off almost in the water, sitting up on my board, and then having to catch the next wave to keep me awake. There's a lot happening, and I think that's the part of that helped me get through it by riding so many waves. I didn't have much time to really sit there and doze off and let my body calm down. I sort of just pushed through that and
Mm.
yeah, it was brutal. But I got to that world record moment, and that was uplifting and amazing. And I didn't remember a lot of it, but a few interviews on the beach came in for a few moments where they'd have to check my vitals after 24 hours. They had to check my vitals as a part of the procedures, and they'd come in and feed me, and that was a strategy of the doctor: feed him, do it as slow as you can, so I can get as much food into him as possible. Because all I wanted to do was get back in the water, and I knew I was going to see the end. I wanted to keep riding waves. I wanted to break the world record, and I wanted just to be in the water and get my job done. So I got frustrated at certain points where I had to come in and eat and get my vitals checked. I'm like, what am I coming in for? What the fuck? I don't want to do this. I've got waves to catch. I've got to get this done. What is so I was going through the wave of emotions there without even knowing.
Mm. And when you got to 30 hours, you've obviously broken the record, yeah? What made you carry on for another 10?
So I said I was going to do it, and accountability is a massive part. It's something that you know that I want to teach my kids. It's something that we can lead by example with. To say you do what you're going to do. And my dad always did that. He never let us down, and it's a trait that from him I want to carry through. To be authentic and to be do what you say you're going to do. And I
Mm.
think that's really important.
Yeah.
And I said 40 hours, and like with all my runs, like my longest runs was 100 miles. It took me 40 hours. Yeah, I know that's not a great time, but I got injured at 100 kilometers, and it took me 12 hours, man, to run 60 k's. I'd do that way quicker normally, but I had a Achilles tendinopathy, and I ran on that, and people showed the support through the last night on that run, and I knew I could get through all that pain. And I did that for so long that because I said, I wanted to be true to my word in front of for myself, most importantly, and to my friends that were showing to support, that had been there training with me, and that were there on that last night to help me get through it. And if I say I'm going to do something, I'll put it on Instagram because I want to be accountable to my word. I want people to say, "Are you going to do this run?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to do it."
Mm.
For more than anyone, it's for myself.
Yeah.
And and I wanted to do 40 hours because I said, and I wanted to do it, and I wanted to get to the end of it.
Mm.
I'm sure a few people doubted me and said, "Yeah," but by the time the world record came around, I'd ridden 500 ways. I'd beaten the target for what we set for the whole 40 hours. So my favorite number is 7, and Lauren said to me, she said she had a feeling that something was this number 7 was going to come up somewhere. And as soon as I'd ridden 500 ways, she's like, "He's going to try and ride 700 ways for sure. You
Mm.
watch." And sure enough, yeah, I got 700 ways in the end.
And then obviously we're talking about like previously, about this feeling of what it feels like when you've accomplished these things. So what was what was the feeling like when you'd accomplished it and you'd been like, yeah, I've done it? Like, how did you feel?
It took a long time to soak in, actually, just to see the impact that the surf itself had. I knew that this time it was bigger than me. We'd brought in, fundraising for youth mental health. We raised $500,000 for the foundation I chose, and it was amazing just to see. Like I learnt so much about how I got that done, and so many things come from the surf that hadn't come from anything previously because I'd done it so raw on my own. And they were for
Mm.
me those other challenges of this one because it was about bringing the community in and showing them that you know that they're worthy, that they're a valuable part of the community, and they have a sense of belonging. Like I wish my dad had known how valued he was,
Yeah.
and bringing that into the theme and seeing what effect this had on people. We sparked conversations with parents around the world about youth mental health, like putting that word youth in front of mental health. So kids were asking, why is he doing this surf? And they could explain to them that it's for mental health. It's so that we learn to how we can look after ourselves and live be functional and be happy in our daily lives. And it sparked conversations that, I think are so important for us to all have if we have kids and with the youth, and to lead by example and be accountable to something I said I was going to do and do it front of millions of people is how we pass the message on, to be
Mm,
able to do what we set out to do and show people that they can achieve their goals.
yeah. So, you mentioned before we talked about the world record and how you broke it, that you focused a lot on, going and doing like visualization work and breath work and stuff like that. So, talk, what importance does like that kind of spiritual side of things play a role in your life now?
Well, I never thought of myself very much as a spiritual person, right? But some things happened along that surf and the way that the crowd interacted. And man, I was 70, nearly 80 hours awake, still in the water riding waves. That was something. I felt so connected to that moment. It was like I'd lived that moment before, like through that manifesting I'd done before, and then the energy of the crowd that was on the beach and with me in the water. That's the only way I could have carried through that, to be able to
Mm,
have that love and compassion for me present in that moment. I felt connected to every wave that broke and every person that was in the crowd and in the lineup and the wind, and it was just this surreal, 4 or 5 hours of flow state I had at the end of that surf where I was slowly breathing through my nose because I knew that's a way to create energy, slow nose diaphragmatic breathing. And when I opened my eyes, I just knew that the next wave was going to come to me, and the way I was going to surf it, I knew exactly what was going to unfold. And it was this
mm,
crazy, few hours that I had where I was just like, this is incredible. Not, looking back on it, not many people will ever get to experience that, that being able to still surf and do turns on my 700th wave and have the energy and have the support of people for the whole last 40 hours. Like mates were taking people were taking days off work, and kids weren't going to school to hang down there and support this guy just doing this challenge for,
mm,
a reason much bigger than themselves, and people showing up for and feeling connected. It was just this amazing, amazing energy and, wave coming to me. I rode my 707th wave with my 10-year-old boy. Like that's pretty incredible to do that after 40 hours of being in the water and having the support and raising all this money. And
mm.
my dad was definitely with me for through those difficult times, and it was the strength of that going, well, I can get through this. I want to show my boys that I can get through difficult things and empower them and empower the community to show that someone like me that's been through his own struggles, that had the challenge with dad, and you can turn these things around. The worst thing that's ever happened to me has turned out to be something that's been better for myself and the people around me because I've become a better person for it. Be able to
Yeah.
find that self-awareness and give myself that time to be able to know how I can lean towards being the best person I want to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's a saying that's kind of stuck with me over the last few years, um, and that is everything is happening for you, not against you.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. It's one thing I did kept saying to myself in the surf is, you're exactly where you're meant to be. And I think that's it's just acceptance, right? Just saying you're exactly where you're meant to be, and having that mindset where you can go, well, how can I improve from here? I want to keep getting better, and looking for the where we can learn from, terrible situations and challenges that we face in our lives, and by doing these hard things, by running barefoot, by learning to breathe through my nose, but doing these ultra marathons and sups and surfs, like it makes me a better person. It teaches me that I can get through anything that life faces, and any challenge. Like I expose myself to the challenge so I know that I'm ready for what life throws at me as well, and it makes me stronger in that sense. Gives me that self-belief that mentally I can get through, you know,
Mm,
the challenges that we all face as humans, and
yeah. How do you separate in your mind when you're experiencing pain? Because in everything that you're talking about is so extreme. Along that way is there's just pain, right? There's an abundance of pain. So how are you able to separate the pain from stopping you from doing these things?
I think once you've done it, once you've pushed through that barrier and gone past the place where your own beliefs were set, then there's no looking back. For me, it was just being even just breaking away from being, it's just experiencing it, pushing past the boundaries, that knowing that you can go past that point of pain, and that's where the gold is. That's where you actually look back and go, that was just head noise. I'm capable of way more than I'm telling myself.
Mm.
And it's through that experience that I've known. Like for me, a big challenge for me was my identity's always been a surfer. I've always been the happy surfer that's frothed on surfing, that's a surf coach, that runs a business, that loves surfing. And then all of a sudden I'm running. And I'm running and I'm running every day, and and I feel so good. And it wasn't the fact that it was running, the fact that it was something new. Like it was something, I was curious, and it was something different. It was out of my normal habitat and environment, and I'm off here running, and I saw a little bit of progress with that. And I think that's where what I've learned is that's where I get that excitement. That's what we lack as humans, and especially as adults, where we get good at being, a doctor or a tradie, or
Mm.
office worker or a stockbroker, whatever. We get good. We practice it every single day. We get good. We get stuck in routines, and it's been a long time since I've learned anything or seen some progress quickly, and develop that self belief and curiosity of what's possible. And
Yeah.
that's what I've learned. And I think that's why I was able to get in running, and this sense of newness. And it wasn't my identity, but it was something new and different. And I felt that was fun, man. Life's about having fun, and that was where I went and learned how to ride a mountain bike, and riding down the mountain bike, learn how to hydrofoil and ride a foil, and things that I'd never sort of lent into, being uncomfortable and being a bit of a kook, because I
Mm.
was always such a good surfer that I didn't want to look like I was a kook at something. And then once I sort of let go of that and thought that, this is fun. This is actually, if I let go of what I think I'm supposed to look like, and lean into the uncomfortableness and uncertainty, then that's cool. Anyone can run and get good at it, but it's initially, I think the hardest part is when we do something new, and lean into that unknown uncertainty rather than the known uncertainty that we have, even if in our jobs and in our lives.
Nice. So what's next for you then? So I spoke at the beginning. You kind of gave me the hint that you're doing a 220 kilometer run. Is that the next challenge for you?
Yeah, I guess the next big challenge is that, for sure. Definitely.
What are
Yeah.
you gonna do after that? Like, what are you actually gonna do after that? Like,
It's funny. Hey, I've been at the wave pool this week. They opened a new wave pool in Sydney, and they invited me out there to do some testing and some content for them. And it just got me thinking. Like, I did the world record in the ocean, and I wouldn't mind, you know, doing the record in the pool and trying to ride 1,000 waves in one session. So that would take me in the water to be in the water in the pool for probably 65 hours or something ridiculous like that. And maybe that's something that I look to do in the future, and bring everyone in, make it about
mm,
mental health, get people surfing with me, get people learning in the whitewater, and create this, event where people can come, and we can have public speakers talking about how we grow through what we go through, and empower people, and teach them breath work skills and daily tools that they can take into their lives, that they can it's going to be useful to be happier.
yeah. And what if somebody goes and breaks your ocean record? You're gonna go beat it again?
Good luck to them, man. I mean, just even physically and logistically, I had the best team ever that looked after me, and I probably didn't mention it before, but without the support of my mates, without support of the nutrition plan and the hydration, the lifeguards on standby feeding me food in the water, without this community of people that were there for me and showed their love and care, like I don't think I would have got to 40 hours. I reckon I would have just made the world record and beaten it, but without setting that huge goal, without knowing that, that's the biggest takeaway. I got to I can do almost up to us to take action and do it, but we can't do amazing things without the support of people around us as well. The opportunities that people give us, and the support they give us as well. I think that's the biggest lesson I got from the world record. It's like, to move forward and do these bigger things, if I prepare more and listen to more to my friends and the professionals around me, and then support myself with these people through it, I reckon I got more in me to do some amazing things. So we'll see what comes after the 250 barefoot, and
Oh, so it's
the surf.
250.
It's
It's
250,
250.
bro, along the coast. It's not going to be fast, but I got to cross about 5 rivers and change clothes, and I want to run through some schools at the end to see that, so the kids can see me battling and again proving that I do what I say I'm going to do and that they can too. And yeah, that's the message here. Just empowering people. That I've come from a place before in my life a few times where I felt insecure and low in self belief, and to be standing at the start of 100-mile races and world records, knowing that I'm going to get through it and develop that anyone can develop and build their self belief so that they can achieve their goals and dreams. And it doesn't have to be a world record. It doesn't have to be a barefoot anything. It can be picking up the guitar or writing a book or taking dance lessons or something as simple as that. It's the hard parts initially, leaning into that uncertainty and going for it, and knowing that you'll be proud of yourself for it. You'll feel that bit of progress, and that'll spark interest and curiosity if you live a fun and exciting life, man. I don't want to get to 80 and regret not doing some things because I wasn't fit enough, or no, I didn't believe I could do it. And you're only accountable to yourself at the end of the day, and I want to make sure that I can continue on being proud of these achievements and living a fun and epic life, and
Yeah.
getting other people to do the same too, man. I
Yeah.
want to support people doing that. I want to see people doing their best and patting them on the back and creating that a world like that, rather than a world where we tear people down and you know and
Mm.
enrich
I
their
mean,
lives.
you sitting in your granddad chair, at 80 years old, telling the grandkids about how granddads run 250 kilometers, 100 kilometers, surfed for 1,000 hours, 707, 1,000 waves, 707 waves. I mean, that's a pretty cool granddad story you got right there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm only just started, I think. I want other people to to feel as good as I do. My saying is everyone deserves to feel awesome.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that. And, some of us, no matter where you sit on the spectrum of your mental health, it's achievable with hard work and surrounding yourself with the right people. We can get through not only, challenges we put upon ourselves and goals we set, but things life throw at us that seem, hard, really hard, and make us feel stuck sometimes. We can all get through them, and I think that's, we need support. We need people sharing their stories and proving these things all the time.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, you know, the last hour and a half that we've been chatting, I mean, it's just the amount of inspiration and valuable insights and real life examples that you're given is it's invaluable. So I want to thank you so much for giving me your time, Blakey. It's great that we're now connected. If I do come over to Australia in over Christmas this year, 100%. I'm coming for a surf. I'm pretty terrible, but if you can get me up in a few sessions, I'll be a happy man.
Done, done, brother. We can do that.
We do have a couple of questions from Facebook, so
Sure.
just want to get them answered. I think some people are popped in halfway through and stuff like that. But one of the questions was, what preparation did you do to get ready for such a massive challenge?
I think I'm the most conditioned person for that job, an endurance athlete, if you call me that. Do them all really raw. Surf coach, surfed my whole life, and just yeah, I think you couldn't be more conditioned to the ocean to handle those elements more like me. I'm 41. I feel 21, but I look 81. So I spend my time in the elements, and these wrinkles are signs of happiness. So no, I was ready for it. And I knew I had the mental strength to get through anything that it threw at me, and it
Yeah.
sure did.
And then another question: how long did it take you to recover after being awake for 80 hours?
I didn't really stop. Funny thing is, the next morning, right, I woke up in bed at home. I don't know how I got home from hospital. I had to go up there and get IV drip for a few hours, and woke up at 4 o'clock the next morning, just by routine, just popped up out of bed and stood up, and the wife's like, "Get back to bed." Anyway,
Yeah.
I jumped back into bed and slept most of that day, and then I had to go to work on Monday. I had 60 kids on a camp. We run well-being retreats for high schools, and I was down there working with 60 kids that week, and then 5 weeks later, I ran a 100K ultra marathon in the Blue Mountains, and I didn't stop. So like 6 months, I was still training and I was running, and then it's only been really, to be honest with you, the last sort of 3, 4, 5 months that I've felt mentally fatigued. So I think it's non-stopping, and that, like, physically, my shoulder was sore. I've got a pinched nerve in the back of my neck from my head being up so much in the surf that I've never had before. My shoulders were sore for months, but nothing that really stopped me from living the life that I live. And it
Mm.
was really, I think I felt it more mentally, a bit more of a mental reset needed now than I have ever before. And I can only put it back down to that surf, that time I had not sleeping, and the non-stop in my training for the following 6 months and the big year I had after it. So I feel like I'm getting there.
Nice. Well, Blakey, thank you so much. What's the time there now? Is it what, 7, 8 o'clock?
Yeah, nearly 8 o'clock.
Nice. Well, thank you very much for spending so much time with us.
Thanks for your time, brother,
Yeah.
and
No,
I look
thank you
forward
very
to
much.
taking you surfing.
Yeah, definitely. So, guys, for those that are listening in, I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as we do. I'm so blessed to have a podcast where I get to speak to so many cool people like Blakey, and it's not going to stop there. This is episode 95, close to 100 now. I can't believe I've recorded over 100 episodes, close to, or coming up to that landmark, sorry. And obviously being able to do that is being able to meet cool guests like Blakey, and also being able to help inspire people like you. So if you've taken any inspiration from this episode, please drop us, a note and tell me a bit about what you found with it. And, we're going to leave all the show notes where you can connect with Blakey, find out where his school is. And if you're Australia, I've got a lot of friends in Australia. So Australians, friends all over in the Oz, if you want to go surfing, I'll leave them in the show notes as well.
I should have said something too. I should have said something. What I'm doing is I want to obviously give people the experience of what it feels like to look after themselves and do it. So I actually doing like swell being retreats where we introduce them to surfing, or they improve their surfing if they're already a surfer, and we get out in nature and we do some barefoot bushwalks and runs and ice baths, breath work, some teach actionable skills, and that's what we're doing with the money we raised with the foundation, is just getting people out there and experiencing um, practical tools that they can take in their daily life to enrich their lives and be the best people they can be. Get them down there.
how often
Yoo!
how often did you do that?
We do a couple. I did a couple last year, 2 men's retreats, and then we run ones with high schools, and I'm just starting to do some corporate stuff as well. So should be pretty epic.
Awesome. Well, keep inspiring, Blakey. And like I say, if I do make it over in Christmas, then I'd love to connect and meet you in person.
Let's do it. See you, bro.
See you. Bye bye.